All right, super. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. We wanted to do a little event, kind of an informal event, just about little things that you can do in FileWave, day-to-day stuff that you can do in FileWave that we've found as we're speaking to folks. Well, let me back up a second. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a customer who's been a FileWave customer for a very long time, and I said something about using a smart group for a particular function. And his response to me was, well, actually, I've never used those for anything. And they've been a customer for so long, it made me think, a lot of times, new folks will join an organization, and just because somebody's been, a customer's been with FileWave for a long time doesn't mean that everybody knows how to do everything. So we thought, it would be a good idea to do a little event where we, just cover kind of some of the simple things or the lesser known things that are super useful in environment. So this isn't a heavily technical call, and we'll use this and go ahead and post it on YouTube as well. So, we only have a few folks attending right now, but we hope to get the word out there about a few things. And so there's no set agenda. We do have a list of things that we will cover if nobody has any questions about anything. But we'll start off with one in particular. I think Josh is going to demo a couple of things, just to see if you use them. And I'm going to MC us through here today, and might cover some things, and stick around to the end if you want to see a sneak preview of our new client monitor tool, which I think you'll all be very happy with. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Josh. And Josh, what are you covering for us here this morning?
So I'm going to talk about notifications that are new-ish, and return to service on iOS specifically. So let me share my screen.
So what version did notifications come in, Josh?
That should be, hold on one sec because I'm picking to share my screen. You should see my Discord window. So that should
We
have been
do.
in 15.5.
Yep, that's correct. And what kind
Um,
of notifications are we talking about?
So we're talking about I want to send a message to a device, and in this case, I think you can see on my screen my iPad, and you can see my FileWave console, right?
Yeah, we can see both. Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be an iPad. So it can be really any of the devices we support. So it can be a Chromebook, it can be an Android device, it can be a Mac OS device, a Windows device. I'm just showing it on an iPad because the other thing I'm going to show is also going to be on an iPad, so I figured it was easy. Um, so I can make a message pop up, and that message can have text and it can have a URL, so that maybe you want to send a message about that the lunch menu has changed for today, and then the button goes to the lunch menu, for instance. But a real world example is maybe there is, because it's super cold here, it's like -4 or something. Maybe a building is closed because a water pipe burst or something, and you want to send a notification so people don't go into that office because they won't be able to get in. Or some other event that you want to let them know about.
Yeah,
And
I always think of the restart, Josh, because a lot of times, like if a device isn't working right, I don't want to send a restart command that might interrupt them. But
yeah,
it's awful nice to send a command or a message that says, "Hey, something's funky with your device, and maybe can you restart it when you get a chance."
yeah, that's a good example. And I want to show how easy it is, and I'll explain how it was possible to send it because I'll explain how it works, I guess. So if I right click and I pick send notification, I could pick this device. I could technically pick send notification where you're at the bottom there. I could pick this group. So I can pick a group, I can pick a smart group, I can pick multiple devices. Um, the thing about groups and smart groups is that at the time you send the command, whatever devices were in that group or smart group is the target list. So it's not like I could queue it up for like all iOS, send it, and then enroll a device tomorrow and it would get it, because it wouldn't. It's whoever was in the group at that moment. So if you keep that in mind, then it's easy. I'm gonna send it to this one iPad, just a simple send notification. The lunch menu. right? And then I can add a link. And I'm going to have the button say open link, open lunch link. And I can set an expiration date. So the purpose of the expiration date is, um, let's say the example of it's super cold, a water pipe burst, and a building's closed, and you want to tell everybody, don't bother going to that building, right? Well, if my device doesn't receive the notification, maybe it's off, maybe it's either shut off or the battery's dead at this moment. I don't want them to get the message in 2 days when their device powers up, because I know the building will be open again. So I could say when I want this to expire so that it shouldn't, try to be sent anymore. But I'm just going to send this, and when I hit send, it'll take a moment, but there will be a notification you'll see on the right, hopefully. I'm going to send it, and if we wait a sec, it usually comes a few seconds later.
What's the mechanism for sending that, Josh?
So in the case of, I believe it's a push notification to, I believe it's push notification to our app portal. I know the kiosk is the thing that actually shows it. Um, the app portal here is the thing that actually displays it. And when you click the open button, it is the thing that renders that web page. So I was sending notifications all morning, so I would assume it should work in this moment.
And I don't remember in this case, but it's worth looking. If
Oh,
you look at
wait,
that
here it
device,
is.
oh, there it
It,
is.
you
There's
know what
the
it was? So
notification.
sometimes the notification, I mean, it is an iOS notification. So when I have my screen up, the way I have things all kind of hooked up, I figured it was possible that the notification didn't like pop down from the top in that moment. But it does, it is a normal, so it's a normal notification, right? But when I tap on it, and you can see that ZZ was one I sent before as I was testing. But if I'll tap on it, and you'll see that the FileWave sort of kiosk is the thing that's showing it. And if I open Lunch Link, you can see they went to filewave.com because that was the address I gave it as the lunch link. And if I hit done, I'm back here in the kiosk, because the kiosk is the thing that's drawing it and showing it off. So, but it's a native OS notification that drove that notification on the notifications area. That makes sense?
It does, and it's native to each platform, right? So, for instance, if you're
Yes.
managing Windows devices, it's a Windows notification. It's
Yes.
not it's not something file wavy. It's just leveraging the capabilities of the local OS already.
Right, and that's
Um,
why the notification itself can differ depending on OS, but it will be the way that OS handles it. So for Android, you'll see it in Android's notification center. So it's in a way that's good because you're used to seeing notifications there, right? So like it's totally normal to see there, and it just follows the standard way. So
so let me ask a follow-up question on that, Josh. Not for you, but for everybody that's joined us here today. I'm curious. One of the reasons we wanted to cover some of this stuff is because if you don't happen to catch it in the release notes, you might not even know you can do it. I'm curious how many folks have used this function. Maybe you can say in the chat. And if you have used it, what are the use cases in which you're using it? In the meantime, if you want to go ahead, Josh, you can show the return to service piece as well.
yeah, there's one
I
more
think
Oh yeah,
thing
go
about
ahead.
notifications that I should point out. On iOS specifically, my observation has been that I needed to push out a profile that allowed notifications from the kiosk. I could have, when I launched the kiosk, picked to allow it to do notifications, but I didn't want to have to, launch it and pick to allow notifications. So I just used a profile. I just want to show it real quick. Notification profile, you just give it the identifier of the thing, and you can just say like, okay, allow all these ways that it can notify, and then you don't have to have people launch it just just to pick to notify. Although you do have to launch the app portal one time at least for it to really do its thing. Um, okay, so then return to service. And sorry, PM, was there something you were going to say? I thought I heard you a little.
No, there was a question from Mike on a different topic. So maybe we can just answer him once you've done with notifications or with return to service.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something about Apple TV, so you can just go ahead and then we can switch to the question.
Okay. So then I'll talk about return to service. So and just to close off the end user notifications, there is a knowledge base article. It's on my screen. There's a knowledge base article that steps you through it, and it is super easy. Like I really didn't have to do much of anything. It's a super short article, and it shows you what it should look like on each platform, so you could know ahead of time. Definitely a good thing to try out. So now return to service.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
and I just mentioned as well, I think it's one of those things where once you start to use it, you're going to use it a lot,
Yeah, I would agree.
right? Once you kind of realize it's there and that you can use it. So that's why we wanted to mention it here today. So what's return to service, Josh?
So return to service, and I have two tabs open here because I'm going to talk about it on iOS, but it exists for tvOS as well. So yeah, Apple made it possible in both cases, and so we added it for both ways, and I'm going to show off return to service for iOS and iPad OS. So the idea, and you could read the article too after this. I mean, it's also a super short article, really, and has a bit of detail. The idea is, let's say I'm a hospital with a cart of iPads, and I want to periodically wipe them out, but have them come back onto my network automatically, get back to original configuration and be managed automatically without having somebody to have to go through and pick to reset it and re-enroll it and do all the steps. Or if you're a school, it could be a cart in a classroom where you just want to kind of wipe out all the nonsense that the kids might have done to the devices. As anybody uses the device, they put various things, and maybe you want to be able to easily wipe it out and then get it back to configuration. So for
Let me
this,
ask a question.
yes.
Sorry, I keep interrupting,
No, no,
but
it's okay.
in this case, why is the function of return to service such a big deal and make things so much easier than it was before? What did you have to do before if you were going to wipe an iOS device?
Well, when it would wipe and come back up, it wouldn't know anything about any wireless networks. So you would have to go on the device and put in the Wi-Fi password or whatever way you get on your Wi-Fi. You might, depending on how your automated device enrollment profile was set up, you might have to click through a few things. Um, Mostly that was the headache.
Yeah, so basically you still had to touch the device, even though you could remotely wipe it. If you wanted to reset it, you'd still have to touch it, right?
Yeah, it'd be sitting at that little welcome hello, the hello thing cycling through the various languages. Um,
Yeah.
but in this case, now you won't be able to see the whole thing on here, but I sort of have it set up. I have a little camera I can show my iPad. But part of it, depending on how long it takes, is you might have to believe me on the tail end. But um, so what we need a Wi-Fi profile. So I have this Wi-Fi profile in FileWave. Nothing special about it. It's just a Wi-Fi profile that you might normally push to a device. You probably have a Wi-Fi profile if you manage iOS devices to tell them about various Wi-Fi. So this just has to be a file set. And the reason it has to be a file set is because when I go to this device, I'm going to pick to wipe the device. You might go to the menus and be looking for return to service. Return to service is really a function of wipe. So when I go to wipe, I'm going to pick to remove activation lock, and watch. If I don't, I can't pick return to service. Obviously, activation lock has to be attempted to be removed. Otherwise, the device will be sitting waiting for credentials to remove activation lock. It would kind of hold things up. Um, and then, because I have these two things checked, I can pick. I actually have two Wi-Fi profiles in my file set list, but I have this Josh Lab one. This is the one I'll use. And let me just wake up the iPad, and I'm going to pick to wipe the device. And because this is destructive, you gotta put in your password for FileWave, and then this device may still prompt if it had a problem removing activation lock, but I know it won't in my case. And then it says successfully. And then what'll happen is that this guy will not work in about a minute or so. It'll start wiping. And so it takes the time that it would take if you pick to erase. Like it'll sit with the apple and the little progress bar. And
While we're waiting on that,
oh,
Josh.
there we go. See how the picture went away?
There it goes. Yep.
So I have it set up so that you can see a little bit of the chaos in my house. But you can see that it was erasing itself, and then it's gonna go through setup. And I'll try not to make you guys nauseous with the camera moving because I'm holding it. Um, this part takes, a couple of minutes because it is going through a wipe, and then it will go through activation. So if you want to ask any questions while it's doing it.
So there was a question. Yeah, there was a question related to Apple TV, and thanks Guillaume for answering exactly. The easiest way, if you want to manage 300 Apple TVs, really have them in Apple School or Apple Business Manager. Make sure that they are assigned to FileWave in DEP, and then you can assign them a DEP profile. So either you create your DEP profile and you assign the DEP profile to all devices, or you can use the rules which automatically allows to assign a DEP profile. And then make sure that you have network for the easiest way I would say is to have Ethernet cable. Sorry, I know that's a bit last century, but that's the most reliable way to enroll devices. And then you just turn your Apple TV and it's there. So I know it's not DEP anymore. We have to change to automated device enrollment. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Hey Josh, while we're waiting on that, and in lieu of other questions, can you maybe show the MDM command history for this device?
Yeah. Oh, but look, it was faster than we thought. So I
Oh,
know you
cool.
might not be able to read the text if it didn't focus right, but it says setting the language. So the special thing about return to service is it preserves the Wi-Fi profile, which is why we asked for it. And technically it could preserve the MDM profile too if we wanted. I don't think we do that. I think we rely on ADE to get it back in.
We have two options. If you have AD device or DEP, sorry, I'm still talking about DEP, sorry, Guillaume. But if it's an AD device, then we assume that you go back to to your MDM server, so we don't preserve the MDM profile. But if it's a non-AD, so if you went with enrollment with the old the over the air just by downloading the mobile config, then you have an option to keep or to discard the profile.
And you can see I'm not touching it or anything, and boom, it is back at being an iPad. Now, I can show you. So it does its iPad-y things. It's putting the Apple sort of applications in. And then what you'll see is the edit home screen thing just kind of shows up. But in the background, that's going to be the kiosk, I believe, that's installing. Yep, there's the app portal. So, and it will push, I don't have other applications assigned to it. I do have profiles assigned to it, like the push notification one. Um, but it would push anything that you had, queued up for it. It does its thing, and I was able to wipe it without really touching it. And then if I go in here, it's configured for FileWave. All is good. So let me put down my shaky camera. Sorry about that. And that is that. And I think.
So let me ask the same question for this one. Who has used return to service in your environment so far? And it's a pretty useful thing if you didn't know it was there. So Josh, can you go ahead and go back in there for a second?
Go back onto my iPad, or
No, just into your admin since you were
oh yeah, of
showing
course.
your admin. I think I just mentioned a couple of things about MDM command history.
Oh
A
right,
couple
because
of
you
things
wanted
that
me to show
you may not know.
the
Yeah, so if
command.
you double click on any device and an iPad or a Mac, and it opens up the client info window, one thing you'll notice is by default, you may not know this, but in this view, in the command history tab, these are all the commands that are going out via MDM to the device. You'll notice that by default, when you open this window, it goes ahead and creates a series of like 10 different commands that get sent. And then as you watch them, as we're seeing here, those commands get first they go from not sent to sent, and then hopefully on the device it will acknowledge them. Sometimes the device will say not now, where it can't actually process that thing right now. But on this device, just opening this window makes it refresh itself. And so the types of things that it's doing there is it's checking to see if everything's applied that should be. Does it need to do any install applications? It's getting a list of the applications. It's getting a list of the profiles that are on the device, right? And all that stuff happens automatically for this one device, right? So you probably, if you're managing iOS or macOS devices, I'm sure you've probably noticed this, and you come here to check stuff, and in fact you can see here that shows the installation of a profile that Josh did a little earlier. So you can look and see installation of applications, and for any device that might be that it upgraded some stuff, something upgraded on the VPPs in the store, so it updated on the devices. All of that stuff will show for any individual device. But you may not know that in version 15.5, we made this global as well. So Josh, if you close that, let's go do a quick report or an inventory query for MDM history. So if you just do a new query, and depending on the size of your environment, this limits the number of records that will be in there. So it may just be a few days. I think it's up to 50,000 records total. But if you scroll on the left, you're going to see there's a whole section called MDM, the MDM commands. If you simply add that, Josh, in the fields area so that it's all the, we don't really need any criteria. We just want to see all the MDM commands. And you can add the device name in here as well. And this will show you all MDM commands for your devices. And that's super useful if you then, want to start, policing the environment for stuff that's wrong. So for instance, you'll notice that status column will acknowledge, this is as good as we're ever going to get. I always say it's like asking my son to take the garbage out. I ask the device to do a thing, and the best that I'm going to get back is, yeah, I'll do it. Right? And that's kind of what we get on the MDM front from a device. It tells us that it acknowledged the command. That means success as far as we can tell. So that means I actually don't care about it when I'm looking at this kind of history. I don't want to see things that are acknowledged. I kind of want, in this case, I want to look for problems. So Josh, if you add a criteria for that status to be not acknowledged, right? So if you look in that MDM section and grab that status field, and then say that it is not acknowledged.
Oh, acknowledge.
Right. And then if you go back and look at those fields, right, we're only seeing things that are errors or not now. And likely not now, we don't care about that much either. But then we can start, looking at a whole environment and see problematic machines or problematic devices. And I think that's a super helpful way of being able to look at things. We're going to improve this a little bit in version 16 as well to include bundle IDs for applications, so it's easier to tell what kind of application installation happened. But I wanted to point this out as well because it kind of slipped under the radar for a bunch of folks. And you can easily do a nice dashboard for this too that shows you, kind of any devices that are problems. And then you can use that in combination with that send command thing and actually maybe send a command to the device and say, hey, it looks like your device is having some issues. Maybe a restart would help.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, there was just a follow-up question with return to service. What about turning on location services? Unfortunately, there is nothing in the API provided by Apple to turn on or off location services. That's something Apple considers as a private decision, and we as an MDM, we cannot change that. Now, what we can do is that in the DEP profiles or the ADE profile, I need to learn the new name, you can define if the user will be prompted to enable or disable location services. So, Josh, if you edit your profile or if you create a new one in Setup Assistant,
this was how I had
here,
it, actually. And return to service will skip, even though I have it to show it, it'll skip past it to accomplish return to service. That's what it seems like for me.
That's the only thing we can do. Yeah.
So it would be nice, like that notification thing, how I make the kiosk able to display notifications. I do that with a profile. It would be nice one day if Apple allowed in a supervised, obviously only a supervised device, but if a supervised device could have location services, I don't think they ever will though, because it is considered super sensitive. And
yeah, the thing is that when you set a device as lost on iOS side, unfortunately it's not already the case on macOS, but on iOS side, the device will be blocked, and then you can get, and FileWave does it for you, you can get the location of the device, even if location services is not turned on. So that's the way Apple answers this question. Their point of view is that you don't have to know where your users are if they don't let you know this information. But if the device is lost, then it's your device. It's not the user that you are looking for. It's the device, and then you can get the location at that time. Knowing that once the device goes out of lost mode, there will be a big message on the device that tells, oh, by the way, the device was lost and the location has been sent to your organization. So that's a trade-off.
In most environments, either the employee handbook or the student handbook are updated to reflect that the person who uses the device should say yes for an enterprise or a school owned device. In that case, in most schools, at least, it's a safety thing to know, to be able to see where the student is, and that can sometimes help. But it's a personal decision of the person that's using the device. That's true. PN, while you had the floor, and unless we get some other questions, I think there were a couple of things you wanted to show.
Is there a client-side return to service trigger button? So it's not available client-side. Now there should be a way to call the API to do something like this. Screen time passcode. There is a clear passcode command which is provided by the MDM and which is supposed to clear the screen time passcode. Now we need to be super careful because if I remember correctly, if your device is locked because the user typed too many wrong passcodes, okay, it does not. So that's probably something to raise to Apple. I remember no discussions about it, but I need to see if we still have a radar ticket for that.
Something while you're actually showing this window for just a second. Another thing that we've added recently is in any report, if you right click on any of those devices, Josh, you've got all the commands that you would be able to do against the device. So in this case, we were talking about that clear the passcode, those commands are available to you in this view. Additionally, in the next iteration in version 16, you'll be able to double click and they'll open client info as well.
But you can get to client info currently from here.
Yeah, you can get to it. It's just the default behavior in the client view is to open client info, and it's not
Yeah,
the case in reports.
yeah.
We're going to change that behavior, but you can get to everything here now, which is super helpful. And as I mentioned before, we're going to do kind of a sneak preview of Client Monitor at the end of this, which also relates to client info. We've got some cool stuff there. So, PN, you had a couple things you wanted to show. You want to take the floor?
Yeah, while we are talking about iOS, maybe one small thing we've added a couple of versions ago, which is quite cool. Let me see if I can. I cannot share the screen. I'm guessing you are still, because you are sharing.
I'm going to stop streaming.
And okay. So you should be able to see my screen in FileWave admin. There is one thing that we added that was a customer request for quite a long time. If you are deploying a lot of Apple devices, especially iOS, sometimes it's hard to figure out what's the serial number of the device. If you are turning more than 40, like me, it's written very, very, very small at the back of the iPad, and figuring out what's the device, it's sometimes hard. So of course you can just turn it on, type the passcode, and go to preferences or settings and see the serial number. But yeah, sometimes it's simpler if you would have it directly as on the background of the device. So one thing you could have do with FileWave for a long time was to deploy a wallpaper to your devices. So you could just go to FileWave, create a profile. So that's one of the way we worked around some limitations on the API, or not really limitations, but the way Apple foresee the setting the wallpaper is to send a one-shot command, and which is okay. But if you want to make sure that your wallpaper is always the right one, if you want to deploy wallpapers to many devices, in FileWave, the easiest way is to go with a file set. And the way we've implemented that is to have a command policy profile, which is not really a profile, but it looks like a profile. And then you can go there and select your icon, your image, the one you want to deploy to your device. And you can make deployment or association to the device. Where is my device? Here it is. And associate it directly to the device. Of course, it will take a little bit of time because we have to go back to Apple, ask for more for Apple to reach out the device. The device should come back, and then we will have the information. And then we will send to the device the command to update the wallpaper. So as you see on the back here, there is the wallpaper, which is there, but yeah, it's still normal, very nice wallpaper, but without many information. So one thing that you would like to have is something which is unique for each of your devices. So one thing you can do with FileWave is, if you go back, you can edit your profile, and there is an option which is text overlay, where you can use any text, and you can even use information which is coming from inventory. So here I'm using, instead of having the serial number itself, the text, the wallpaper, I'm using the variable serial number. And then if I am associating to deploy this profile to, and I had a little bit of test there that I will remove as well. If I'm taking the serial number one back to my device and I'm updating model, we'll have to wait a little bit until the process goes.
You did it twice,
yep.
And I'm sure I didn't see your mouse move. How did you update model so quickly there?
I'm an old guy, and I'm used to shortcuts. So on Mac, it will be a Command U to go with update model. And I think on Windows, it will be Control U to update model. I'm a big fan of screenshots, and I'm used to screenshots. And sorry, I missed to show QuickTime and the screen. And here now directly I have the serial number of my device, which is visible there. So even if if my device is turned or is locked, you can see directly the serial number of the device here. You don't have to look at the back of the device and figure out what's the serial number if it's written in a very, very, very small way. And you can do all custom or all fields you can have in FileWave, which means anything which is reported by the device from inventory, or you could even go with more complicated text. So here I have a custom field which is named depth, and I have an asset tag which I entered using CSV import, and I want to have a more complicated text which is now department and the depth which is for this device. And I will update the model. If we look at the device, let's go there. And if I look at the device and I look at my custom fields, I am department IT, and the tag is on random number. I add to the history and some number. And after some time, if I go back to my QuickTime, I see that the background of my device changed with department IT as the tag. And I have a different number for visual value for all the devices I have. So if you really want to customize completely your backgrounds,
Oh yeah, your audio got a little garbly.
I thought that was just me. Just me.
Better?
Oh yeah, now you're clear.
Yeah. I have a Thunderbolt cable which I need to replace at some point. Let me share my screen.
Yep. You know, the one thing that I see a lot of folks do or want to do is include the user information of the user and the serial number. Can you do that?
Sure. The thing that it depends on where the information comes from. So it's what's one thing you could do. So here I don't have on my demo setup, I don't have enrollment which is tied to an Active Directory. But if I would be able to create a custom field. So let me go with the custom field. And for instance, I could create a custom field which is linked to my LDAP system. And so here, unfortunately, I don't have LDAP configured right now. So the FileWave will complain and tell me that it's not a good option right now. But I would be able to create a custom field which is based either on the user or the computer. And if I enter the attribute name for my LDAP server, FileWave will regularly synchronize information from my directory service with my device. And then I can create a custom field which contains information which are coming completely from my directory service. And of course, this information, as soon as it is in inventory, can be displayed on the device with the wallpaper customization.
Well, and you can also get that even if you're just doing LDAP auth for enrollment. So if you're doing it for enrollment, it will set the auth username, and you can use that as well.
Yeah. What I mean is that the auth username will just give us the name of the user. But if I want to have even more information, so for instance, if one thing I demoed once, which was quite nice, but it's a bit more advanced, so maybe it's for a future FileWave Did You Know session. If you have the information about your users, you have the date of birth in your LDAP system, you can create smart groups, or you can create things based on the age of your users. So you can create a smart group for all devices which are used by users which are below 14 or which are between 14 and 18. So you can do way more complicated setup, and FileWave will make the automation just for you. So talking about automation, one thing you've seen me doing for this demo was to make association and then change association, and then hit model update, which is okay. That's the normal process. I do my changes. I am validating my changes, and then I'm modifying everything. Now, that could be intrusive, especially if you are working with multiple admins. And the problem is that while we are computing the changes and all these 18 steps you see on the screen, everybody is a little bit blocked and has to wait until model update is over. And FileWave provides, using smart groups, a way to help building deployments in an automated way without having to run model update. Just looking at Mike's, we're prohibiting using any student info to display on screen. Yeah, it really depends on the district policy. One thing to know as well is that for the wallpaper, for a long time there was no restriction to remove or to block wallpaper. So anyone could change wallpaper, or anyone could change the device name. And it was a nice games from students to have the best, with air quotes, wallpaper in the school. So now we have restriction, but it was not possible at the beginning. So back to my demo. One thing that you can do is automate as much things as possible with FileWave. One thing I like to say about FileWave is that FileWave is a great tool if you are barely not using it. Why? Because you've been able to set everything automatically, and then you can focus on your important task, and then FileWave is doing the job on your back, and you don't have to care about it. So one thing that you can do is create smart groups. If you create smart groups, you can create smart groups based on anything we know at FileWave, and mostly everything related to inventory. So here I created a custom field, which is the type of wallpaper. And I can have the basic one, I can have no wallpaper, I can have serial number, or I can have a custom field based on wallpaper based on custom fields. That's the one I showed you before. And then I have a smart group, which is based on any device which has a custom field value basic. And I have done the same thing for the one with the most advanced one. And I've done the same thing for the one with serial number. So I'm just selecting the custom field with the serial number. And then what I can do on my device, so if I'm going back to my device, I can change the custom field for that device to be serial number. And then if I save, I don't have to hit model update. So now the only thing is that we evaluate custom field every now and then. So by default, it's 10 minutes. You can trigger a refresh of the custom fields to be a little bit faster. But then if you see the device which was in this group, automatically went to that group. And what you can do is associate your different type of wallpapers. So the basic one will be associated to the basic one, the serial will be associated to basic, and text plus custom field. You need to hit once model update to tell FileWave the structure, so the fact that this file set will be associated to these smart groups. But then when the device will switch from one smart group to another smart group, everything will be done automatically. No model update, even no need to start FileWave. So, or to start FileWave admin. So that's a neat way of managing devices, because you don't have to pay attention. You just have to build your own rules, and then FileWave will take care of the changes for you.
And not only is that a good way to avoid model updates, but it's also a good way to maybe even give administrative rights to folks that you wouldn't normally give admin rights to. So you can allow them to just change a custom field, for instance, but not give them the right to update model. because they don't need it, right? They can change that custom field, and in fact, that moves it from one smart group to another smart group. So kind of a normal thing would be maybe a field technician that needs to move a device between schools, is a great example, or between physical buildings. You can move it between just by changing that custom field, and everything else is automated.
So
And
that was,
because
yeah,
we're running out of time a little
yeah.
bit, I did want to mention one thing. I'm going to give, if you want to queue up the next topic you'd like to, and I'd like to um, hold on to the last 5 minutes to give Georgia a chance to show off Client Monitor a little bit. But Derek, one of the things we hear all the time, and this is 100% for sure, is it's too hard to upgrade FileWave. The application itself, the server, the clients, the boosters, the IDS, etc. And for sure on the product side, we've taken that feedback, and we're hoping later in this year to start working on making that process a little bit simpler. But one thing that I think that a lot of folks don't know about upgrades is what, Derek?
Hey everybody, support can help, right? So for those of you that do those on your own, awesome. But if it seems like too big of a task, just reach out to the team, right? The only thing that they'll do is they'll have you schedule it, right? If you've reached out to support before, lots of times when we need to have remote sessions with customers, we'll send them a link. It's Microsoft Bookings, so that it'll give you a choice that you can pick that's flexible with your schedule and ours. They'll send you some prep work, but if you're not comfortable with it's usually, making sure you have a proper backup and stuff before we do the upgrade. But if you're not even sure with that, we can help with that as well. I just wanted to mention that because we had a customer the other day that was still running 14.7. I was a bit curious how they're even still managing devices on a system that old. So, don't ever feel that you're bugging us or anything. That's what support's there. We're there to help, right? So, even if it's something else, we'll either point you in the right direction, send you a KB. But the worst thing I hate seeing is customers will reach out and they're like, I've been struggling with this for days, or this has been going on for a week. Don't let it get that far. Just ping us, right? Like if you're struggling with something after messing with it for like a half hour, an hour, like ping support. We'll either ask you some clarifying questions or we'll ask for a remote session. Again, we might send you a KB or something, but feel free to say, can we schedule a remote session? Can we have a call? Whatever your form of communication is that you like best. All customers are different, right? So just reminding you quick, the easiest way to get a hold of us is help.filewave.com or support.filewave.com. I can drop that in the chat here in a second.
And
thanks, Mike.
And
the
there will
question,
be a 15.5.2 which will be released very, very soon to cope with the most recent OpenSSL update.
Yep. And the other thing kind of with the upgrades and stuff too, I know the worst thing is, when you reach out for help, sometimes support, the last thing you want to hear is, can we upgrade the system first? But most of the time, as long as you guys are running the current version or one below, we should be able to help. And if we have to escalate to dev, we should be in the clear. Sometimes dev even asks us to upgrade to the most recent. But if you are on an older version and we have something we have to escalate, we are going to have to ask to upgrade because, as we're building these fixes and stuff, we want to make sure that we have everything that's already in the product. So we're not going to make a fix for something on 14.7, but obviously the most two recent. So like PN mentioned, that OpenSSL thing is going to be fixed in 15.5 and 16. I think that's about it for me.
All right, super, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any other questions. PN, do you want to show anything else before we take a look
Uh,
at Client Monitor?
I think we can let some time for Client Monitor and then for questions. And if we have time, I still have a few things on my list if we need to.
Super. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And shout out if there's anything that was on the list of things we'd cover. I actually didn't believe this hour would go so quickly, but we've run out of time like immediately. But let me share my screen because we want to give you a little sneak preview of Client Monitor in our next version, our next release. Let me just get the right window here. Why do I not see it? Well, we'll just do
When you pick to share,
Sorry.
it'll then ask you what you want to share.
Yeah. And my app's running. It doesn't list my admin, so I'm just going to share my screen here. Right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes. You can see
All
Discord.
right, and let me take an opportunity to go ahead and introduce Georgia has just joined us. For those of you who remember Isla, she was a product owner for our web, primarily web development team. George has just joined us here about a month and a half or so ago, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about Client Monitor and some of the changes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you guys are, I guess. So, considering we're going to be running out of time pretty soon, I'm going to try to put all of the super interesting stuff first. So, in terms of the key features that we have for our new Client Monitor. So the first thing is we're going to have real-time device details. There's going to be a clear status indicator showing either red or green, obviously for online and offline. And a very important part is going to be related to automatic updates, which are going to be fetching new data every about 2 seconds or so via NATS messaging if the client's online. So I don't know, Tony, I don't know if you can actually demo that right now or not.
You guys can't see it?
I can see it.
Okay.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just me.
Do you have to
late for
click
me.
his sharing square?
Yeah, you have to click on the window, but this is the new interface, and it's all web-based rather than the application in the way
Yes.
it was before. And what's different about preferences, George?
Okay, so in terms of preferences, so we're going to have read-write based on permissions, which if you have a modified client permissions, you can edit preferences, or otherwise the fields are going to be read-only, essentially. And some of the examples of, let's say, editable preferences are going to be verify interval, booster settings, heartbeat interval, debug, and so on. And then you can obviously save the changes if the system prompts you to save or cancel.
Well, and the key thing here, and you may not have noticed when I went to that, but did anybody notice how I was looking at details? Like if you thought about the old Client Monitor, and then I went to preferences in the existing one, you know how that prompts for credentials, right? There's no longer any credentials for this. This is entirely based upon your authentication into your FileWave admin. And this is all happening via the NATS messaging system in the backend. So it's the client talking to the server, and then all the authentication is done through that channel. There's no longer a password for it.
And you didn't have to put an IP address.
That's correct.
Exactly.
Because there is no IP address when we go here. We're no longer basing anything. We're showing an IP address, but it actually has become super not critical anymore. And because the communication is via NATS and no longer initiated from the admin or from the server, what does that mean as far as seeing devices that are offline, George?
Sorry, what was that? What does that mean?
You mean
in
off
terms-
network, not offline, I
Yeah.
think.
Not offline, off your company network or your school network. So, for instance, I'm in Ohio here in the States. PN happens to be in France, in the eastern part of France. He's got a device here that's enrolled in my system, but we're clearly not on the same network. I can now do Client Monitor. And how is that different, George?
Hold on. If you could just bear with
So
me
even
for
though
a
that
second.
device is natted away from us, we can still see it. Right? So this is a device on a totally different network.
Yeah, until now, so the client monitor was already there when I joined, and I've been there for almost 13 years. And it was just a direct connection. So your native admin was just connecting, direct connection TCP to the client. For FileWave Anywhere, we introduced something which was acting a little bit like the client monitor from native admin, but then you needed to have everything on the same network so it would work correctly. Now this limitation is completely gone, so you don't have to be on the same network as your devices, and then you have access not only on the client monitor, but also on our very nice thing. If you can scroll down, Tony. The last part, Derek and me as a developer, sometimes helping support, we will love this because now we have access to client logs, even if we are not on the same network as the client.
And more logs than before, because before the only log that we got was this one. We've exposed that to add some more logs that are available here, so you can grab those all directly with for a device that's offline. And the other thing I'll mention while we're here, just in the essence of time, is because we're no longer dependent on IP, and before everything was IP based, we actually had no idea what device you were looking at when you were using Client Monitor because it was all about IP. There was no way to go over, like, I'm sure you've been in Client Monitor before and you're like, hey, I'd really like to see the status of that file set that I've sent to the device. And so you need to be in client info for that device. Well, now there's a link between Client Monitor and Client Info. So you can click on this button and that will open Client Info for that particular device. And of course, you've always been able to go to Client Monitor from that device view, but now you can go back as well. Right? So we can see all of the things that are going on for this device from Client Info too. So we've tried to make that a whole lot more useful, and it is entirely web-based. So what you see in Anywhere, when you use this in the web admin, it looks exactly the same as this.
And it does all the same things, right? You can change preferences, pull logs, all the same in Anywhere or Essential.
All the same thing. Yep, exactly. So when folks ask about what we're doing with the web, this is the direction we see this going, where we start to include similar content between both platforms that is web-based and try to make the best of the web utilization and the local application as well.
Oh, and can you monitor more than one device at a time with this new thing?
Yes, you may, right? So we can do this one, and I think PN's got another device that's up here.
I believe you can open
So
up
we could
50.
always do, yeah, we could always do more than one window, but now we can do that, and you could do the same in the web too. So,
Yep.
Right, there's this one and the other one that we had open, and I hate the way that it constantly puts the apps in the front.
They're behind, yeah.
All right, so that is about it. We've about run out of time. Are there any questions or topics for next time? We were thinking about doing this thing on a kind of a recurring basis, and I don't know if you'd like to, but we were thinking about maybe doing it monthly or so.
And there was just one question about 15.5.2. We just received green light from QA a couple of minutes before we started this event, so we'll wrap up and then that should be so the answer is very soon.
And 16 is not very far away either. So we expect 16 in the next few weeks. Right? And that will include this Client Monitor stuff as well as some big changes on the software update side. So, thank you everyone so much for joining. We really appreciate it. And we'll do this again real soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.